This is Real Talk, the customer insights show with Jenn Vogel, a top-rated live stream and podcast in the market research and insights industry. We stream live on LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube, and you can listen on all major podcast channels. Join Jenn and her guests for a weekly discussion around topics that will help you understand your customers better. Real Talk is presented to you by Voxpopme, the leader in video research and ranked number 1 in qualitative research by Grit 2 years running. Here's today's conversation.
Hello, insights professionals, marketers, and everyone who wants to understand their customers better. I'm Jenn Vogel, and today I want to discuss the ever-evolving field of do-it-yourself market research, dirty word, DIY. While we're talking about this topic, I also want to introduce you to Voxpopme's newest Vice President of Research, Brian Manchin. Brian joined Voxpopme after serving as Senior Director of Consumer and Product Insights at Subway and Manager of Consumer Insights at Pepperidge Farm for the last 2 decades. Welcome to the show, Brian.
Thank you. Hello, Jen. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. And so pleased to have you on the show today, to have you at Voxpopme. Brian was a customer of ours for a long time when he was at Subway, and we were so happy to scoop him up last fall.
It's been a great experience so far, too.
Yeah, awesome. Today. Of course. Yeah, this is going to be a fun chat. So as we, kind of get started, maybe you could tell us a bit about your experience in the insights industry.
Sure. Yeah, it's funny when you said 2 decades, I'm like, wow, I'm old. So let's see. I've kind of hopped around the insights industry a bit throughout the years, from both the research partner side over to the brand side and then back. I started out my career at Macy's, which is now part of Nielsen, and they're pretty well known for sales forecasting. We did a lot of global A&U work with a lot of Fortune 500 clients, and it was a great foundation of knowledge as I got my step off into research. Decided to make a move over to Pepperidge Farm, as you mentioned, and there it was a really fun place to work. We worked on a lot of really fun categories: cookies, crackers. You can imagine being around goldfish and Milanos all day long. And it was really fun. And, partway through that, a few years in, we were getting ready to start a family personally. So I wanted to get a little closer to home. So that's when I made the move over to Subway. And that's where I spent most of my career. And it was a great experience. I learned a lot about being versatile, being nimble. We supported a lot of different teams internally, not just marketing. But you think of all the different teams that are in a client like that. R&D, the food innovation, operations, you name it. And it was a great experience. But more recently, I've decided to make the switch again, and it's been really fun. I've been at Voxpopme for a couple months now, and it's very different from what I was doing, but in a good way, because I'm using a lot of the experience that I had from the past. To work with the teams here and really just try to evolve things from where we are now and learn as we go. But yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
And we're so happy to have you. And a little fun fact. So I grew up right down the street from the Pepperidge Farm factory. And so I know what it smells like on the weekends in the mornings when they're baking all their deliciousness.
It was dangerous.
I bet.
I loved the days when they were making the cinnamon raisin bread. That was just unbelievable how good that smelled.
Yeah, totally. My dad still lives over there. So on the weekends.
Oh, nice.
It's like amazing.
Very cool.
But it's cool. Like you've kind of had that experience of working on both the partner side and on the brand side. So are there any like nuggets that you can share, things that you've noticed working, in both of those sides of the business in your career?
Yeah, it's been really great. It's like, it's a very humbling experience. And the reason I say that is just because I've learned, that there's a lot more that meets the eye when you've lived on both sides. So if you think about the brand side, you're typically supporting a lot of internal departments. You're working with different agencies and research partners. You're reporting into executive leadership. And there's just a lot on your plate. And working with one research partner is really just one very small spoke within a much larger wheel. So I have a lot of respect for positions, for folks that are in positions like that. But then again, on the research partner side, it's been really eye-opening too. I hadn't been on the partner side in a while, but when I see what goes on behind the scenes versus what I was seeing as a former client, there's so much orchestration happening in the background. And whether it's gearing up for client calls or all the product updates on the platform that are happening in the background, and all the test and learn that's happening in the background, among a million other things. Again, I have a ton of respect for being on this side of things too. So I think for me, it's, having that unique position of having lived on both sides, I have a better understanding and a much better respect for what it takes to do both jobs.
Yeah, I think you have like probably the most unique perspective, and everybody's got like stuff that you see happening and then the million other things happening in the background.
Yep.
And you've actually seen both. Like what's happening on the brand side in the background and what's happening on the partner side in the background, but naturally there's a million moving parts and pieces and there's only so much that's actually on the surface. So having that
Absolutely.
appreciation for like what the other side is going through just helps to partner better.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like, even things like, when we talk to our clients and just learning about the challenges they're facing, I felt some of those challenges. So to be able to understand those a little bit better, I think that goes a long way. So yeah, it's really helped out in the first couple of months of working here at Voxpopme for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And so then just to kind of get into the topic at hand today, the dirty word of DIY.
Mm-hmm.
How have you seen DIY market research evolve in your career?
Yeah, it's funny. That's like the scary word, right? Like
Right.
you don't
Yeah.
want to, you say DIY and people sometimes get nervous. I think back in the day, at least from my experience, DIY was definitely that scary phrase. You just automatically assumed this is going to take a ton of my time. Um, and it's so different now. I liken it to, DIY when it comes to home improvement. So when I think of home improvement back in the day when I bought my first house, I tried to do a lot of stuff myself. And I probably spent twice as much money. I took 4 times as many trips as I needed to Home Depot and Lowe's. And it's something that you just didn't have the confidence in yourself. Now we have YouTube, and YouTube allows you to find just about any type of DIY project you need to do. It's been done most likely. And there are tools out there. And if you think about DIY within research, it's kind of the same thing. There are better tools out there. There are faster tools. There are more intuitive tools. And having the right DIY partnership in place really helps you align better to the speed of business. And let's be honest, with COVID, budgets have been hit pretty dramatically, and teams are being asked to do a lot more with less money, and that's where DIY is a huge opportunity. And again, finding the right partnership, it can allow you to really adapt to the needs of the business, but in a way where it doesn't have to be scary, and you can do it for much less budget too.
Yeah, and I think that education piece that you hit on is so key. Because you're right, like
Yes.
with at-home projects, I'm a big DIYer. Like I have been known to just like rip things out to see what was behind them and have zero plan as to
That's
how
the
I was
best way
going
to
to
do it
fix
because now
it.
you're committed, right?
Totally, yeah. Like I guess we're gonna have to replace that floor because I took it
Yep.
out. But being able to Google and find the answer, find the step by step, like, I feel like I could probably do pretty much anything. There's
Yeah.
certain things I won't try because it seems dangerous, but, like,
Hmm.
plumbing, I feel like that could really mess something up. But for the most part, I can find how to do it, and I find that in my day-to-day at work also. I was just
Absolutely.
talking to somebody internally about, some tags we have set up, Google Tag Manager. It's way above my ability in terms of experience with this kind of coding. But there's like a few blog posts about it, like I could probably figure it out. But if there was a platform or like piece of technology that could just do it for me, and I didn't have to do all the writing and whatever, like that would save me a lot of time. Because to your point, budgets are cut. I've got to do more. I don't have enough money to spend on an agency, but I also don't have enough time to be
Right.
writing code and learning skills that I don't necessarily have. So, like the way that the technology side of DIY has evolved, it's like the education and combined with making things easier, like somehow we're starting to get closer to being able to solve a problem here, which is really
100%.
important.
Yeah.
Well, we lost your face, but that's okay. We're gonna
Here we go.
we're gonna keep going. There you are. And so um what types of teams have you seen as being maybe more open to DIY, and how are they getting started with it these days?
Yeah, I think, teams that would be open to this are probably the ones that are willing to roll up their sleeves a little bit, um, get a little scrappy with the data, be inquisitive, um, and, an analytical thinker. Teams that like to build the story and kind of take that journey along to find the narrative, in my mind, are really good use cases for DIY products. I look at myself. I prefer, to do analysis myself if I can. If I have time, within my schedule to do analysis, I prefer that, because when I'm going to present that analysis, I'm going to know it so much better. And then there's a lot of DIY products out there that allow you to kind of go along, build it as you go, and then when you're sharing that information, you're going to know so much more about it, right? And I think that's really one critical piece.
Mhm.
Another reason teams are going to do this, and the teams that really need it, are the ones that have that need for quicker results. You need speed, you need to turn around fast. A lot of traditional methods out there, albeit really really strong and informative, can take time. And I think back to when I first started my career in research, and the 6 to 8 week project was pretty standard. But that's not the norm anymore. So I think, having products out there that are DIY that you can do yourself, not have to wait for someone else to produce that, it goes a long way. Um, and then obviously limited budget, teams that are having to cut costs. I think those are the ones that are going to benefit really from DIY, because once you realize there are platforms out there that can do this work for you for much lower costs, it's going to take your dollars much further.
Mhm.
And then one last thing, as I think about DIY and teams that are really set up for it well, in my experience, I think it really helped to have somebody on the team that was the subject matter expert.
Mm.
So having that SME that can kind of manage whatever that platform is that you're using that's DIY, they become the expert. Then they can teach the rest of the team, but they're like the go-to person. I think everyone should know how to use whatever this product is, but having that one person on the team that can really be the owner of it has always proven successful for us, when we've worked with different DIY partners.
That's a great tip. Having somebody that like you can go to and well, that person's going to be able to help me with, this survey tool or whatever. How do you like? What's the best way to identify like who should own a particular piece of technology?
Yeah, I think it comes down to understanding, as far as who on your team, for instance, is that one person that really seems like that, those attributes I talked about before, being inquisitive,
Mm.
analytical thinker, somebody who really just wants to dig into the data. That's typically the person that you really want to have as your subject matter expert. That's the person that's really going to help bring this to life. And also, I think it allows, I like the idea of giving people the chance to really be an owner, and not only to manage a relationship with a partner, but also to teach people and educate people. I think education goes so far, and having the right person in place to do that, it just makes the team all around just a much more cohesive team in the long run.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that that analytical piece that you mentioned, or sort of like wanting to dig into certain areas, like when I think about different types of DIY platforms, there's probably a certain level of automation that like is going to do that job of saving me time and saving me,
Sure.
effort. And then other areas, like you said, like I want to be the one to do the analysis, so I'm closer to it. When I'm presenting, I know it better. Like what parts of DIY do you want to be automated, and what do you just want to have the ability to do yourself? Like in the when you're thinking about your process for running any kind of research study or program, whether it's ongoing or whatever, what are the areas that you want to be, yeah, to be automated for you, and what are the areas you just want to get access to?
I think when it comes to the results, so
Mhm.
what's ultimately going to get presented from whatever this piece of research is, I want to have more of a hand in that. If, like you said, the automation in the background to get you to that point and maybe help start to pull out some of those nuggets of information, some of those insights, do that for me. But then from there, I want to take that because, like I said, I like to be the one involved and almost like creating the narrative as we go because of the fact that when you finally get to the finished product, I know exactly how it came together. I mean, we can compare it back to the DIY project. I've ripped
Mhm.
apart bathrooms. I know exactly how every piece of that bathroom goes together because I was the one that was responsible for really putting everything together. I also know where the flaws are,
Hmm.
and that's okay. We don't need to tell anybody about those. But it's I think it's the back end where you know if I want someone else to do the analysis, I'm going to pay for full service research, and I'm going to look to get a polished report that I can just take and pass on. But when it's with DIY, I think handling the analysis piece and really pulling that story together is an important part. It's a great learning tool, and it's just going to make you understand your data better when you're presenting it.
Yeah, that's super helpful. I think it's an interesting distinction. Like certain things are DIY and automated, and that's great. And some things still DIY, still want to get my hands on it, but not automated. Um,
Absolutely.
and I think that's an important distinction. I also think everybody has learned something today. If you want DIY help, you can call Jen for like flooring and tiling and things like that. And you can call Brian for plumbing.
Well, yeah, to a point, and be careful with electrical with me too.
Yeah, yeah. So I'll actually this is a whole rabbit hole that we should not go down, but I will mess with electrical. I have been known to install my own light fixtures and things like that.
Yeah, there's definitely a point that you don't want to go too far.
That's
Yeah,
true, exactly. As long as I can confirm it's off, then I'm okay to
there you
mess
go.
around with it. So what are some of the barriers that teams are facing today to do DIY market research?
Yeah, I think, one thing is it's definitely going to be lack of resources. Like I said,
Mhm.
having that subject matter expert on your team to manage a partnership like this and do a lot of the legwork. If you don't have a team or you have a very small team, it's a tough thing to do. I know in my past, when I've had a very small team, just a few people, we would rely on full service just because we simply just didn't have the time to dedicate to focusing on different types of products, or even we even do like a hybrid approach where part of it was managed by our team, but part of it was managed by a full service team. And I like to do that because then I could look at my partner as an extension of my own team, and there's
Mm.
just more heads in the game to help think through the analysis. Um, I also think limited bandwidth can be an issue. When you're supporting a lot of cross functional teams internally in an organization, all the way up to executive leadership, you can get stretched thin really quickly. And it's without that bandwidth, it's sometimes tough to dedicate your time to certain platforms that are available. And then finally, I think one of the big barriers that we ran into is that if you've got a very custom strategic project where you need full level of analysis done on it, um, you're probably not going to use a DIY tool. I'm sure there are some that exist that you can use, but more often than not, I would go to a company and get a full service project done. But that being said, there are still cases where you can tack on DIY. So a great example is when we did a pretty large scale consumer segmentation. And this was a huge project. It was the biggest dollar item of the year, 6-figure project. So we did that full project, and we got a lot of the quant data done, and did all the analysis and understood the segments. But I wanted to take it to the next level. So we used a video platform. You probably can't imagine which one I'm talking about. But we used a video platform called Voxpopme to create videos and bring these segments to life. And it was so eye-opening when you have numbers on a page that tell you like, okay, these are moms with younger kids, and they live in these parts of the country, and they have these types of jobs. But then you see that mom, and it's at night, and her hair is disheveled, and there's kids running around, and you see laundry on the couch. It's like, oh, I'm really starting to understand now exactly who this person is. And you can then take that information and figure out, okay, how do I talk to them? How do I communicate to them? How do I get them more interested in our product? So I think there's definitely cases where it may be a barrier at first, but if you really open up your mind a bit and think about where there could be some use cases, you might be surprised that even on those bigger projects, this is a great way to add value to something and really help bring it to life.
Mm-hmm. I was gonna say we didn't pay you to say that, but
I know.
Literally, we did.
I guess you did, didn't you?
Totally. But I love that like hybrid approach. That seems like a great way to kind of, get, because I'm sure that large scale segmentation study that you did, full service, spent a bunch of money, it probably wasn't back to you in a day, right? Like that took time. It was worth the investment for what the outcomes you needed, but being able to combine that effort with whatever the DIY portion is that you want to add on to it after, to fill in gaps and to take that one thing and elevate it to the next level, is such a great way to approach it, because there's always going to be gaps, right? There's so many different methodologies out there, different data sources, different ways that we can get to an answer, but there's always going to be something that can give us more information, a more complete picture, or better understanding of who we're trying to get closer to. In this example that you gave is a great one.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just the idea, the buzzword in research right now is agility, right? And you got to be agile, and there are a lot of tools out there that can help you do that. So you can put a good portion of your budget towards a big project or ongoing projects, whatever that may be. But think about how you can fill in the gaps, because like I said, there's a ton of DIY options that are in the industry now that can allow you to get scrappy and not really take a hit on budget and not take a hit on resources or time either. So I think if you're smart about that, you can really enhance that final deliverable. And at the end of the day, it's really about just getting a quick win. Getting a quick win internally with cross-functional teams, with leadership, and this is a great way to do it.
Yeah, for sure. And also like making the most out of the investments that you are getting. Like I'm hearing like would people pay as much attention to the data that you presented if there wasn't that kind of emotional connection that you added to it? So really being able to maximize that budget and spend it when you need to, be agile in other places, but also make sure you're making the most out of the areas where you are spending that time and money and resource.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Okay. So let's talk a bit about technology. What tips can you offer someone who's thinking about selecting a new piece of tech that they want to trial or they want to sign on to or start using with their teams?
I think the one thing I used to look for a lot whenever I was trying to evaluate new DIY offerings is ease of use. I go back to my point how, on the client side, any one researcher on an insights team probably has 20 different things on their list for 20 different people on any given day. And then, tack on the fact that there are loads of meetings that they have to attend. They don't have time to work with cumbersome platforms. So ease of use in my mind was really important. I would also say, a good tip when you're looking for new technology and DIY is just see what's out there right now. Go, do your own research, look at the different reviews that are online, look at company rankings in the industry, talk to your peers, see what other people are saying about them. More than likely, someone within your LinkedIn network has used, one of these platforms, and you could learn more about it just from someone who's actually used it. It's how you think about, going to a new restaurant. I love looking at reviews, but even better if somebody actually recommends it to me. Oh yeah, I need to try that out. I at least have to give it a shot. I think too, whenever I would talk to potential research partners, I would usually ask a couple questions every single time. My old team knew I would always do this. They probably pretty much expected it. But one of the things I would always ask is, what's your point of differentiation? So I would expect to get a very specific answer on, okay, here's where we live. If you get a generic answer, I start to get a little concerned, because at this point, if you're coming to talk to a potential client, I think you do really need to know where it is that you live within the industry. And another area I like to ask about is, what's their core focus? So I become a little leery of a company that says they can do everything. Granted, I know technology has come a long way. I know companies can do so many different things, and they can play in a lot of different places. But I'd almost rather have a company tell me, you know what, this is what we do. This is our core focus. We don't play here. This is not what we're known for. This is not where we have experience. And for me, it's like, great. I respect that. I know where we need to talk and where we need to focus our conversation, and we could just get so much more done within that first conversation. So, I think it's these handful of things that, as you're thinking about DIY and looking at different technology, ask those questions, because you'll be surprised at how much you can learn just by a couple of questions, because it really puts them on the spot to really think about, okay, what am I known for, and why am I here? So I've found that to be really, a great way to just have a good conversation to really understand focus. And then you can pretty quickly understand whether or not it's going to be a good partnership or it won't, but at least you know that up front.
Yeah. I love those questions that you ask every time. And I think those are great recommendations. But even if there's another, if there's a question that you're asking every time, like that idea, I think is really strong. And the idea about like understanding the company's core focus. I mean, we are in an industry that's like highly collaborative, right? And all of the technology platforms out there integrate with each other and partner with each other and talk to each other and can be, connected. And so there is a really great benefit to working with pieces of technology that are really highly specialized, because you
Absolutely.
can then, kind of build your stack, right? And make sure that you're not necessarily sacrificing in one area because you get the all-in-one platform. Like, I don't see a lot of those, actually, a lot of like all-in-one platforms
No,
out there.
maybe early on,
Yeah.
they existed, but now there's definitely a lot more focus in the industry, I've noticed. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that collaboration is a big part of that, because you don't need the all-in-one platform. It's very easy to build that yourself, or not from a technology perspective, but actually kind of create the different pieces of the puzzle that you need, as opposed to kind of going to a company that says, hey, here's the whole like complete puzzle. Maybe it's not the puzzle you were looking for, but it's complete,
Yep.
as opposed to creating your own. So all right, good stuff. Let's talk about your role at Voxpopme. How are you working with our brandside teams, our customers, prospects, and how do you think that that will evolve?
Yeah, it's been a great experience. Like I said, I'm a couple months in. Definitely a steep learning curve coming over to this side, but in a really good way, because I've just learned a ton. So like we talked about, the fact that I've got that unique perspective of sitting in the seat on the brand side as well as this side, I can really relate. So when we're talking to clients, they're talking about their challenges. They're talking about, the pains that they endure day in and day out when it comes to how they're trying to manage research. I can relate because I've dealt with a lot of those challenges myself. So it helps with the conversation when I can, talk about how I try to, get past those challenges, get over those speed bumps. So that's actually helped a lot. As we try to have calls with clients and just learn about where they're at, where their needs are, and where there could be a potential fit for us as well. And it's definitely a unique role that's going to evolve over time. I mean, we're doing a lot to learn from clients. We're creating a customer advisory board. We're having ongoing calls and really just trying to gather as much learning as we can to just make ourselves better. And even when you think about within a client's company, the way Voxpopme was developed was, at first to really just hone in on research and help research teams. But, there's a ton of opportunity if you think about, the other teams within an organization like marketing, as they're trying to think about of new communication, or an R&D product team where they have new products and they're trying to determine which ones are the right ones to go forward with. You can even think about like an internal HR team. How great would it be for an HR team to use our platform to talk to their employees and, learn more about what's happening? This could be a situation where you have a global, a global company and you're in a number of different countries. This is a great way to gather quick information and just learn about your own company internally. So it could be for internal R&D too. So I just think there's a lot that, we can do to take this to the next step. And, but most importantly is learning as we go and making sure, we're hearing, the challenges and ways to overcome those from our clients and using that to really evolve the product.
Yeah, it's great. Like having you here to be able to speak from your experience and helping to solve some of those challenges and brainstorm some of the different ways that companies can use video that maybe they haven't thought of before. And I'm super excited about the customer advisory board, which you mentioned that, we talk about it all the time on the show here, and like we just love talking to our customers. We have the best customers ever. And,
Yes.
this is just like another avenue where we're going to ask you a ton of questions.
No, it's great. It's like, because I can certainly help answer some of those questions when it comes to, okay, from a client perspective, but how great is it to have a collection of other clients that can, we can all talk to and learn from. Back in my Subway days, I sat on a couple of different advisory boards. I knew so much more about those research partners by sitting on those advisory boards than if I was just using them as a, client partner relationship. Because you're brought in on the inside and you're really learning about, what makes them tick and kind of where they're taking their company. And, I think there's a mutual benefit to all of that. So we're really excited about it. It's still relatively new, but I think, like I said, we're going to get a ton of learning out of it.
Yeah, for sure. And so from your experience being on these advisory boards, like we've been talking about how people are resource constrained, they don't have enough time. Like, what is it about participating in something like that that is worth our customers' time or was worth your time when you were participating in them before? Like, why was that something that you prioritized?
It's a couple things. I think one, even before you have that discussion with the research partner, you're building relationships with your peers. The biggest thing that I got out of attending those advisory board meetings was as I heard all of the challenges that other insights professionals were dealing with in their respective companies, and it was not within my industry. More often than not, I could be in an advisory board where there's pharmaceutical clients, CPG, technology, you name it. Everybody had the same challenges, and it's like when you can sit there and be like, wow, I thought this was just me, but really this is literally across the board. Everyone kind of deals with the same things. Then we can learn from each other. And how great it is to walk away from a 1.5, 2-day meeting and have some clear takeaways of things that you can do that others are maybe a little bit further ahead with trying to to get past that challenge and what they did to help alleviate it. And you could use that in your own company. So that right there was enough for me. But then tack on the fact that you're having really in-depth discussions with this research partner, and they're kind of bringing you into the fold on what their plans are going forward. And I think if an advisory board is going to be successful, there has to be mutual benefit. And from the client side, I've always felt like I got so much out of it because I just knew so much more. I understood them so much better that I can help develop that relationship, and usually would end up meaning I would want more from them too, which is that's the benefit from the research partner side. So it was really a win-win, and I always tried to raise my hand anytime that opportunity was there, because you just get so much out of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's like part learning how to do your job better, or getting ideas or whatever, and part group therapy, like
Yes,
you are not
definitely.
alone. No, it's awesome. I'm excited. And I agree. There's got to be mutual benefit, right? There's only so much you can ask and take, it's
Sure.
like we benefit so much from talking to our customers, but we want to make sure we're always providing value too. And this is a great opportunity for that. And I'm excited for this to kick off in a couple of months. So, and actually, I mean, this is a good segue into the next question I want to ask you, which is in general, like how can partners and brand side researchers like work better together?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, you know, first and foremost, I think there has to be a mutual respect. We're all here to do a job, and I never looked at it as us being better than them, or vice versa. I think everybody has a different role, but end of the day, if that mutual respect is there, it can take the relationship so much further. I mean, anytime
Mm.
that we worked with companies, I always wanted them to be like our partner. I never wanted to call somebody a vendor, or somebody that's working for us. Absolutely not. Just as important as my job is as leading an insights team, their job is just as important. They just happen to be selling a service. So having that respect both ways, I think, is really important. And then information sharing, I think, is critical too. The companies that we worked with, that I think we had the strongest relationships with were the ones that we would share some information, and bring them into the fold a little bit about understanding business challenges. They're only going to be able to help you that much better if they understand a little bit more about what you're dealing with, and some of the hurdles that you're trying to get over, and some of the key questions that you're being asked on a daily basis. So I think being open, and you're not going to share company secrets, totally understandable, but we can share a little bit of information that can help them better understand what you're going through. I think the outcome really helps. And then finally, from the research partner side, I would just recommend listening. And when I say listening, I mean really listening. Um, your clients are dealing with a lot, and that conversation that they're having with you for that half hour or 45 minutes is just the tip of the iceberg of the 40 million things that they have on their plate right now. But if you really listen, you may hear some of those challenges that they're dealing with. And if you dig a little deeper, there may be a chance to, one, adapt your pitch accordingly, but two, you can potentially, it could lead to something even bigger, just by really understanding where they're at. And it's end of the day, it's a much better outcome. So, I think if you can do those few things, you're already way ahead.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's all really good advice. I think, one of the things when you were talking about, sort of being open about what you're working on, what you're challenged with, whatever, like I've heard people say, like, you've got to earn your right. You've got to earn the right to ask me what my biggest challenge is, my biggest problem is that I'm trying to solve, which is the question we all are asking. So I think like where you started, like mutual respect, building rapport, building trust, and then, you know, creating a space where you can be open, really listening, like I mean, maybe this is some sort of like relationship advice channel, actually.
Yeah, there you go. Well, as you're talking, I have to give a shout out to David Katz because he did exactly that. And that is why we became a client. So he's definitely the master of that. So shout out, Katsy.
Huge shout out to Katsy. Everybody in the industry loves David Katz, including all of us here. But yeah, I mean, great example. Like somebody who's really good at asking the right questions to dig a bit deeper in a respectful way, and is really good at listening and tailoring, a solution that's actually going to help to solve a problem, as opposed to listening to respond, right? Like,
Yes,
when are you going to be done talking so I can give you my pitch,
Yeah, and you don't adapt your pitch, and therefore it's probably not going to be nearly as successful either.
Right. It doesn't resonate. It's like, just be present, have a conversation. It's not rocket science on how we can collaborate better. And, but it can be hard. I think it can be intimidating, talking to new people or opening up about your challenges. And, the more we can do that and just collaborate, it works out better for everybody.
Absolutely. I think end of the day, it's a balance. And if you could find that balance, everybody's going to end up better than they were.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Well, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show today. This will not be the last time, because
All right.
as we've shared, Brian is stuck with us for now. So really pleased to have you at the company. You're making a huge impact already, and happy to present you to the world on this stage, at least today. So thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, JV. This was great. A lot of fun.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So much fun. Yeah. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for listening in. We're going to be back with another episode next week. I'll be joined by Jay Lister of Reebok, and I will see you then.